Steam Next Fest is back, and I'm here for yet another list of demos that are worth your time to try so that you can add more games to your wish list than you'll ever have time to play. Such is our glorious tradition. But before I rattle off a variety of games that will convince you this beautiful June week is worth spending mostly inside, just a reminder that you can help us continue our indie gaming coverage by joining our Patreon, liking and subscribing to the channel, or checking out a stream every Thursday evening on Twitch. Your indie gaming community awaits. And while I'm happy to give you the rundown on my favorite picks from Steam Next Fest, I want to hear from you too. What have your favorite demos been so far? Let us know in the comments below. First up is a game I've had no shortage of anticipation for, as my love for Ratchet & Clank seemingly knows no bounds, and unless Sony starts releasing an entry every year again, I am simply not satisfied. Even with Sony's most recent outing in the franchise being excellent, I still can't get nearly enough, so it's great to see an indie dev pick up the mantle. Akimbot follows Xe and his sidekick Shipset, two outlaws trying to escape a huge army of robots and save the universe for some reason. I'll admit that based on my time with the demo, I'm not yet completely sold on the buddy chemistry between our two leads, but the gameplay itself is a promising throwback to the early 2000s platformers that I miss so dearly, with fun weapons to shoot, a variety of interesting hacking minigames, and a bright, colorful aesthetic that seems to do justice to its inspiration. If you can't get enough after the demo, you'll be happy to know that we don't have to wait much longer for the full release either, as Akimbot is slated to launch on August 29th. Next up is a game I've not been shy about calling one of my most anticipated of 2024, if not the most. As a huge lover of hard sci-fi, the premise of The Alters caught my attention immediately. You play as Jan Dolsky, a builder who lands on a distant planet only to discover that his captain and entire crew didn't make it to the surface alive. Alone, you head to your mobile base, which is more or less a gigantic fancy tire designed to roll between destinations while you build out its various compartments into tools that will help you survive. But you won't be alone for long, as The Alters' main conceit is Jan's ability to create altered versions of himself, ones that took different paths through life with different specialties, to complete tasks that you wouldn't be able to on your own as you race to avoid the certain death of the sun's dangerous rays. The Alters looks like a fascinating blend of survival gameplay with base building, with immense thought given to the atmosphere and creative visual design. Exploring the planet for resources feels uniquely alien in a way that's both eerie and thought-provoking, and little touches like the way the game fast-forwards for the time it takes to craft something, or the ease of which you can see your entire base at once, give me the impression that this is going to be a seriously excellent sci-fi treat, something that developer 11-Bit Studios is no stranger to. I can't wait to get my hands on the final game later this year, but in the meantime, you owe it to yourself to give this demo a go. Now for something totally different. Victory Heat Rally is a retro arcade racer that felt super easy to pick up while also striking me as uniquely technical in its drift mechanics. It completely feels like an old Sega racing game, but with the fast, colorful energy of something like Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. I love the visual style in particular, which obviously takes cues from retro titles, but with some more modern, cartoony effects that give it plenty of personality as you desperately try not to drift off the track into an ocean or something. If the demo is any indication, this one will definitely make me hold my breath in a tight race on the way to the finish line later in 2024, and sweaty palms aside, that is not a bad thing. My next pick is Steel Seed, a game I'm surprised I hadn't heard of before Next Fest, because its unique combination of stealth, platforming, puzzle solving, and melee combat is trying to do a lot of cool stuff that's right up my alley. While admittedly the game feels a bit janky right now, with some clunky platforming animations and combat that feels a tad stiff, the way it folds its mechanics together and presents such a cool looking world definitely has my attention. The demo transitions seamlessly from brief puzzle solving to melee combat to leaning against walls like Sam Fisher to running on them like you're the Prince of Persia. The feel of it has me really intrigued, and the presentation is shaping up gorgeously so far, with an interesting looking sci-fi world at its foundation. I definitely look forward to playing more of Steel Seed when it releases sometime later this year. Up now is a beautiful indie I've been following for what feels like years. SCHiM is a platformer where you play as a frog who can only move around by jumping from shadow to shadow, from basic ones like trees and park benches, to more complex moving shadows like runners making their rounds through a park. The game feels like such a cozy platforming experience, and its stylistic use of color is beautiful to look at and happened to run pretty great on Steam Deck for me too. The wait has been a while for this one, but at last we'll be able to check out the full game next month on July 18th. My next pick for this list is so far, quite honestly, the single best demo I've played so far at Next Fest. Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, say that 5 times fast, is a roguelike game where the mechanics are, well, related to being an actual mechanic. You play as Wilbur, a humanoid 4-eyed fox of sorts, totally normal, who has to repair as many ships as he can either in the frantic mode, which is strictly timed and grants you unlimited jobs, or focused mode, where the time limit is removed but gives you a maximum of 3 more challenging jobs to accomplish. Meanwhile, the act of actually doing a job is straight out of the playbook of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, where you're given a chunky manual with many detailed sections to learn the ins and outs of to get better at your work. Everything you do, even clocking into work, takes place through some obtuse, purposely only half-intuitive machine interface that requires you to reference a given section of the manual and figure out what needs to be done. And even though my brain was already beginning to spin pretty early on, so far Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is shaping up to be something really special. Alright, I get it, this list has contained nowhere near enough senseless violence so far. Don't worry, because here is Kill Knight, a game that turned some heads, including my own, when it was revealed during the III initiative back in April, and for good reason. This wild, bloody, isometric twin-stick shooter seems visceral as all hell, looking like a Vampire Survivors clone played at triple the speed. After playing Kill Knight, I almost hesitated to recommend the demo, actually, and I suspect many people will play it and not like it as much as they imagined. But that's because the core mechanics here aren't quite like the extra gruesome twin-stick shooter you may have been expecting, but instead something far more intricate and initially less intuitive. Kill Knight is what happens when you take the split-second logistics juggling of Doom Eternal and rethink it from an isometric perspective. You'll juggle between the pistols with the right trigger, a shotgun with the left trigger, a melee attack that gives you ammo for the shotgun, and crowd-controlling special attacks while being aggressively overrun by some disturbingly fast enemies. Just like Doom Eternal, every moment here is stressful and keeps you on the move while demanding you to prepare so that when you need the shotgun in a pinch to clear out some enemies, you better damn well have it. I'm curious how Kill Knight gets expanded as it goes on, but learning curve aside, there's some definite potential here for an interesting, albeit intensely stressful, combat experience. And now for something way less serious, Just Crow Things is a crow simulator of sorts in the spirit of games like Little Kitty Big City or Untitled Goose Game. You'll let loose in many open worlds to collect shiny objects, poop on cars or people, swoop down on scarecrows, or pick things up with your beak and cause havoc. Accomplishing enough tasks in each area allows you to move on to the next one. While I can't say Just Crow Things feels quite at the level of those other two titles I mentioned quite yet, exploring the town and solving its mini missions was a satisfyingly good time, and any game with a dedicated pooping mechanic needs to at least deserve a brownie point or two. Frankly, the only thing I wish was a little different here is the music, a melody that usually seemed far too serious for how goofy the gameplay was clearly trying to be. So hopefully that's in the cards for a bit more attention, but in the meantime, Just Crow Things is definitely going on my wish list. Puzzle game lovers, especially those of the Zachtronics variety, this next one is for you. I'll admit that even as a huge fan of puzzle games, most of Zachtronics' coding-focused, brain-bleed-inducing puzzle design makes me wish I was intelligent enough to enjoy them. But Linkito's circuitry tinkering feels close enough to that style of puzzle game while also feeling far more accessible and scaling the difficulty reasonably as the complexity goes up. You'll spend the game connecting various bits of circuitry to power generators, open hatches, charge batteries, and the like. While there are promised to be 80 plus different puzzles as you make your way through the game, what's even more intriguing is the community level editor, which will allow users to create their own campaigns or individual puzzle creations. I had a lot of fun tinkering with this little puzzle game, and I'd love to see it gain the sort of traction that would allow a collection of community creative levels to thrive. Ecologically conscious indie games are nothing especially new, but rarely do they come in a package quite as addictively chill as Spilled is. While this is meant to be a short, cozy game from a single developer whose full iteration will only take about an hour to finish, its demo showcases a satisfying and wholesome gameplay loop as your little boat cleans up oil spill after oil spill, brightening the waters you drift through and clearing the oceans below for ecosystems to thrive. As you collect oil and plastic debris and deposit it in exchange for coins, you can upgrade the power of your boat, size of your oil compartment, or width of your collection mechanism to make for more efficient cleanup as you go. It's honestly as addictive as it is wholesome, and I can't wait to get my hands on the full game whenever it ultimately releases. Next is Arranger, a role-playing puzzle game and arguably the most eye-catchingly beautiful demo I've played this Next Fest so far. Arranger makes movement itself the crux of its gameplay, with every movement you make causing the ground underneath you to act like a looping conveyor belt. While this initially is used to solve simple navigation puzzles, it's also used for combat, like the sequence where I had to figure out how to properly position a sword so that it crashes into an enemy. Between its innovative gameplay, phenomenal visuals, and seemingly charming cast of characters, Arranger is likely to win a number of hearts both during Next Fest and when it fully releases on July 25th. I love that accessible Souls-likes are becoming a thing, and my next choice for this list, Slime Heroes, is exactly that. While its bright, cutesy aesthetic is not a typical choice for the genre unless you recently played Another Crab's Treasure, the combat feels tight and satisfying, as did the shortcuts I unlocked as the demo progressed. The entire game can also be played cooperatively with a friend, which will be great for those that want a challenge but prefer that their pain is shared. Speaking of challenge, Slime Heroes has it, but only if you want it. A full menu of difficulty sliders is available for the sake of accessibility, and unless you're a Souls-like fan who loves to gatekeep, pretty much everybody wins there. Alright, I will fully admit that retro survival horror is not at all my jam, so the demo for Hollowbody didn't really resonate with me, but Silent Hill fans have not been eating well in recent years, so I'd be remiss not to at least mention this one. You play as Mika, whose flying car was downed and leaves her stranded as she desperately searches for her lost partner in a mysterious dystopian future. Dystopian future part aside, once you actually land, the Silent Hill vibes here are pretty much immediate, from the foggy, dilapidated town you explore to the ungodly monstrosities you fight along the way. There was a certain clunkiness to it, reminiscent of those early 2000s horror titles, for better or worse, but while I don't personally envision myself having the heart or patience to play this one, what's here looks promising for fans of retro scares. I'm really excited about my next pick though, which is another bizarre looking title from Strange Scaffold, the uniquely creative folks behind El Paso Elsewhere, Life Eater, and a number of other titles so positively out there that it's hard to quite pin them to a genre. The first thing I noticed in their latest title, I Am Your Beast, which is due out August 15th, is that the incredible voice actor from El Paso Elsewhere is back, narrating the thoughts of secret agent Alphonse Harding as he jumps across tree branches, melees pistols out of enemy hands, and blasts his way through a comic book inspired landscape, leaving the bloody chunks of his enemies in his wake. It's a little tricky to directly compare this to something, but I do get some vibes of Hotline Miami meets John Wick here, and am curious, to say the least, where the story ultimately goes. Time to shift to a reality TV show. That's right, the Crush House will have you filming and producing a 90s era reality show full of all the needless melodrama and vapid personalities you'd expect. And the fact that it's being called a first-person shooter is just the cherry on top. Each episode will have you running around set with a camera trying to film anything juicy going on and ensuring it's connecting with your audience. My first episode felt like a bit of a whirlwind, but once I followed cast members Alex and Emil to the bedroom where they got into a sudden slap fight, I knew I'd struck gold. Not capturing enough of your audience's interest means you'll be cancelled, but getting the right footage, running ads, and buying props for the set will ensure you're keeping your audience engaged and the drama rolling. I really enjoyed what I played of the Crush House, and it's shaping up to be yet another great Devolver published title. Thankfully, we don't have to wait long until its full release on August 9th. Let us know what you tried and liked in the comments, and keep on keeping up with I Dream of Indie Games for plenty more indie gaming coverage.